There are dark corners of the internet, digital alleyways where the unwary are lured in by the promise of one thing, only to be ambushed by something entirely different. If you spent any significant time online during its Wild West era, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've fallen for the bait and switch. It's an old trick. You click a link, expecting a funny meme or a helpful article. Instead, the screen flashes, the content shifts, and you are assaulted by something designed to annoy, disgust, or permanently scar you. We all remember the innocent days of the Rick Roll, a harmless prank. A step above that were the heart-stopping jump scares, the infamous K-Fi commercial with the screaming zombie, or the deceptively simple maze game that sent millions of kids running from their family computers in tears. Then the internet grew darker. We descended into the era of the unholy trinity, shock sites that traded in pure, unfiltered vulgarity. But even those notorious sites paled in comparison to the absolute zenith of digital depravity. Sites that were built with one singular, malicious purpose to inflict psychological trauma. One such domain was a website known as womensalliance.xyz. It surfaced in October of 2020. The architect behind this nightmare was a notorious internet troll operating under the pseudonym Obak. He was a digital sadist. He meticulously designed the site's landing page to look like a perfectly legitimate, progressive feminist blogging community. The welcome text read. This website contains stories of female empowerment. Some of these stories may upset or offend sensitive users. This site is unsuitable for children. It was a brilliant, cruel disguise. It practically invited curious, well-meaning people to click further. The exact moment a user bypassed that warning screen, the trap snapped shut. The website automatically forced the user's browser into full screen mode, locking the display. The carefully crafted illusion of a blog vanished. What replaced it was a high-definition, rapidly edited, grotesque video montage of pure, unadulterated snuff. It showed women being tortured, mutilated, injected with unknown, sickening substances. In some of the most stomach-churning, graphic segments, living maggots were seen crawling from human orifices. And echoing over this absolute horror show, blaring at maximum volume, was the upbeat, cheerful tune of Roy Orbison's "Oh, Pretty Woman." The song was weaponized. It was chosen specifically to mock the victims dying on the screen, twisting a classic love song into a soundtrack for slaughter. Panic would immediately set in for the viewer. They would scramble for the mouse, but any attempt to click the back button or hit the escape key triggered a malicious script. The full screen mode would instantly reset. Hitting any key spawned the fake pop-up prompt asking, "Do you really want to leave?" Clicking OK unleashed a relentless barrage of error boxes, each containing violent, misogynistic threats, all while a piercing, high-pitched electronic static shrieked through the speakers. Rumors even circulated that the site contained code to hijack the computer's volume controls, forcing the audio to 100%. If you were wearing headphones, the auditory assault was deafening. While it never reached the infamous, mainstream infamy of Obok's other creation, a shock site known as KEKMA, Women's Alliance gained a terrifying cult following. It spread like a virus through word of mouth, primarily weaponized by morbid pranksters on Discord servers, who disguised the link and baited thousands of unsuspecting victims into the trap. When eventually confronted about the site, Obok was entirely unapologetic. He claimed the modern internet had gone soft, that there was a lack of shock sites for the new generation. He defended his actions with twisted logic, arguing that his landing page gave users a warning, and boasting that he could have easily injected their hard drives with ransomware, but chose not to. For the people who clicked that link, forgiveness is non-existent. The images burned into their retinas that day are permanent. Women's Alliance has since been scrubbed from the surface web, though archived links still float in the digital abyss. I urge you, with absolute sincerity, do not go looking for them. Some doors should never be opened. Sometimes the internet doesn't just show us horror. Sometimes it breeds it. It infects a vulnerable mind, twisting it until reality fractures and the consequences spill over into the real world. January 16th, 2022, Mata, 8 Mile, Alabama. Hubert Washam, a quiet, dedicated family man, stepped out of his house to grab a quick lunch. It was a mundane Sunday afternoon. He had spent the morning relaxing with his wife of 30 years, Helen, and their 2 sons. The house was peaceful. 20 minutes later, Hubert's cell phone rang. It was his autistic son, Desmond. The voice on the other end of the line was frantic, hysterical. Dad. Damien killed Mommy. Hubert's heart stopped. The blood drained from his face. Damien was his youngest son. He was 23 years old. For his entire life, Damien had been a normal, well-adjusted young man with no criminal record, no history of violence, and no documented mental health issues. But over the last 6 weeks, a dark, heavy shadow had fallen over Damien. Hubert had watched his son change. Damien had started ranting about shape-shifting reptilian overlords controlling the government. He preached about the ancient Egyptian underworld. He began staring directly into the blazing sun, claiming he was absorbing its divine energy. He bombarded his sister's phones with bizarre links, desperately trying to convert them to his newfound, terrifying reality. And then Hubert remembered the package that had arrived in the mail just days ago. Damien had purchased a weapon, a full-length, steel samurai sword. Hubert slammed his foot on the gas and tore back to his house. He kicked the front door open. Lying unresponsive on the living room floor was his wife, Helen. The scene was a slaughterhouse. She had been slashed 19 times across her head, neck, and arms. The sheer ferocity of the attack was unimaginable. She was already gone. Gasping for air, Hubert sprinted up the stairs, terrified of what else he would find. In the hallway, he found his son Desmond bleeding from severe lacerations. Nearby was Hubert's brother-in-law, George. Half of George's face had been cleaved open by the blade. Miraculously, both men were still breathing. They stammered out the horrifying truth. Damien had snapped, attacked the family with the Kautolona, and sprinted out the back door toward an abandoned house down the street. Hubert called the police. As sirens wailed in the distance, Damien emerged from his hiding spot, the bloody sword still gripped in his hand. He jumped into his 2000 Honda Accord and floored it. Deputies engaged in a high-speed pursuit that only ended when spike strips shredded Damien's tires, bringing the nightmare to a screeching halt. Damien was dragged from the car and charged with the brutal murder of his mother. But the justice system ultimately found him not guilty by reason of insanity. His mind had completely shattered. But how does a perfectly normal, 23-year-old man devolve into a sword-wielding murderer in just 6 weeks? According to Hubert, Damien had fallen down a very specific, very dark digital rabbit hole. He had been playing Call of Duty online when he was recruited in a voice chat lobby. He started listening to some crazy group of people like a cult, Hubert told reporters, his voice trembling with grief. We never had any problems with him. And then, all of a sudden, he was brainwashed. The group that hijacked Damien's mind called themselves the University of Cosmic Intelligence. The architect of this madness was a man named Rashad Jamal White, based in Atlanta, Georgia. Rashad was an aspiring rapper with a deeply violent past. His criminal record boasted convictions for battery, strangulation, and suffocation. He had even been charged in connection to a murder, though he beat the conviction. But, in late 2020, Rashad rebranded. He shed his criminal persona and cloaked himself in the robes of a spiritual guru. He adopted the title Divine Insight. Through YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, Rashad began preaching a toxic, hypnotic blend of New Age mysticism and extreme conspiracy theories. To a rational mind, his claims were affable. He stated that NBA players were synthetic robots, that rainbows were stargates to alternate dimensions, that human bodies were avatars injected with nanobots at birth, that the birds outside your window were government surveillance drones, that the Mississippi River was actually the Nile, that clouds were deployed by the government to block the sun, keeping humanity weak and docile. But the most dangerous, central pillar of Rashad's doctrine was deeply racial. He preached that Caucasian people were shape-shifting, reptilian entities. Conversely, he claimed that Black and Latino individuals were literal, spiritually enlightened gods and goddesses, chosen by divine forces. He spun tales of ancient, blue-skinned ancestors who wielded immense power before losing their frequency to their reptilian oppressors. It sounds absurd, but to the disenfranchised, the marginalized, the lonely, and the gullible, Rashad's words were a potent narcotic. He offered them extreme importance. He told them they were gods. His following exploded. Over 200,000 subscribers on YouTube. 150,000 on TikTok. He built an empire on paranoia. And like every successful cult leader, Rashad monetized the madness. The University of Cosmic Intelligence was a get-rich-quick scheme draped in spirituality. The most arcane, powerful knowledge was locked behind a paywall. Followers were pressured to buy subscription packages. The Violet package, touted as the bestseller, cost exactly $33 for a year of live lectures, and a pathetic 9% discount on his merchandise store. His followers weren't just fans, they were zealots. They called Rashad God. They drained their bank accounts for him. Before Damian Washam took a katana to his mother, he had reportedly spent $5,000 buying healing crystals from Rashad's web store. But Rashid's empire eventually collided with the law. He was arrested again, this time for the horrific sexual assault of his ex-girlfriend's child. In 2023, a Georgia judge slammed him with an 18-year prison sentence, plus 22 years of probation. For a normal movement, this would be the end. But for a cult, persecution only validates the prophecy. His followers rallied. They launched a petition titled Justice for Rashad Jamal, claiming the government was trying to silence his divine power. Two of the women who eagerly signed the petition were Yasmin Hyder and Crystal Pinkins. They were an unlikely pair. Yasmin, 20 years old, was a former college student from Oklahoma. Crystal, 36, was a certified health aide from Tennessee. Both came from loving families who described them as completely ordinary, until they found the University of Cosmic Intelligence. By August of 2022, Yasmin and Crystal had severed all ties to their former lives. Following Rashad's teachings to escape government surveillance, they went completely off the grid, traveling the country and living in squalid, makeshift campsites deep in the woods. By August 14th, they were destitute. They had given everything to Rashad, but Rashad had taught them that the laws of the United States were illusions. The laws did not apply to gods. They were entitled to take whatever they needed. That afternoon, in the dense, suffocating heat of the Talladega National Forest in Alabama, Michaela Paulus and her boyfriend, Adam Sim Ji-hyun, were driving down a quiet, isolated stretch of dirt road. They were students at the University of Central Florida, enjoying a final, romantic camping trip before the fall semester began. Up ahead, a young woman was frantically waving her arms, standing next to a stalled vehicle. It was Yasmin. Posing as a desperate, stranded motorist, Yasmin begged the young couple for a jump start. Adam and Michaela, being decent people, pulled over. For a grueling hour, Adam sweat under the hood of Yasmin's car. He watched YouTube tutorials. He even called his father, a mechanic, to try and diagnose the problem. They just wanted to help her. When Yasmin finally realized the road was completely empty, the trap was sprung. She pulled a loaded handgun from her waistband and leveled it at Adam's chest. She demanded their keys, their phones, and their bank cards. Terrified, Michael and Adam immediately complied. They handed everything over. But then, Yasmin motioned with the barrel of the gun toward the dark, dense tree line. She ordered them to walk into the woods. Adam knew exactly what that meant. They were not going to be robbed. They were going to be executed. In a desperate, heroic bid to save the woman he loved, Adam drew his own legally concealed firearm. He opened fire, hitting Yasmin 3 times in the chest and once in the leg. But Yasmin returned fire. A single bullet struck Adam squarely in the back. He collapsed into the dirt. Michaela, a nursing student, frantically dropped to the ground, pressing her hands against Adam's bleeding wound, screaming for help. Bleeding out on the road, Yasmin called out for her goddess sister. Crystal Pinkins had been hiding in the tree line the entire time, watching the ambush unfold. But instead of helping Yasmin, Crystal turned and sprinted deeper into the woods, abandoning her accomplice. Adam Simji fought for his life for 20 agonizing minutes in the dirt of Talladega. By the time the paramedics finally navigated the remote logging roads, he was gone. Another innocent life, extinguished by the delusional disciples of cosmic intelligence. Yasmin Haider survived her gunshot wounds. Sitting in police custody, the illusion of sisterhood shattered. She immediately gave up Crystal. SWAT teams swarmed the forest. They found the 36-year-old Crystal hiding at a heavily fortified base camp composed of several tents. As officers approached, a figure emerged from one of the tents, leveling a loaded, pump-action shotgun at the police. It was Crystal's 5-year-old child. Officers miraculously managed to disarm the terrified boy without firing a single shot. Searching the sprawling camp, they found evidence that several other members of the Cosmic Intelligence cult had been living there in the shadows. Yasmin took a plea deal, accepting a 35-year sentence for the murder of Adam Simjie. In exchange, she took the stand against Crystal. Even though Crystal never pulled the trigger, the jury determined she was the mastermind behind the ambush. She was sentenced to life in prison. Despite horrific murders linked directly to his teachings, Rashad Jamal faced no charges related to the violence. And terrifyingly, even with the prophet rotting in a Georgia prison, the University of Cosmic Intelligence continues to thrive. New audio recordings from Rashad's jailhouse, phone calls are uploaded to his YouTube channel weekly. The comment sections are flooded with thousands of devoted followers, praising his name. The internet has weaponized the cult. It has eliminated the physical boundaries of the compound. The algorithms feed the isolation, wrapping vulnerable minds in an impenetrable echo chamber. And the threat is far from over. In August of 2023, 6 members of the Cosmic Intelligence cult vanished entirely from St. Louis, Missouri. They left their homes, their jobs, and their families. They have not been seen or heard from since. There is a terrifying vulnerability to sleep. You close your eyes, your consciousness fades, and you are entirely at the mercy of the world around you. Most of us assume we are safe in our own beds, behind locked doors. But there are people who hunt in that vulnerability. If you dive deep enough into the internet mystery subreddits, you will eventually find whispers of certain, deeply disturbing social media accounts. Accounts that trade in the non-consensual surveillance of the unconscious. One such account surfaced on TikTok. Over the span of 18 months, an anonymous user uploaded hundreds of bizarre, unsettling videos. The aesthetic was a chaotic mix of Buddhist iconography, disjointed photographs of anonymous women, and porcelain bowl-jointed dolls contorted into unnatural poses. All of this was set to a soundtrack of grinding, avant-garde noise music created by the account owner. But the art was just a cover. Mixed among the dolls were the true horrors, videos of unsuspecting women. The footage was captured through slightly parted curtains or cracked windows. The camera would slowly zoom in on women while their backs were turned, or worse, while they were fast asleep in their beds. The Reddit community erupted. Users immediately drew parallels to a notorious, defunct YouTuber known as Mr. Sleepy People, a man who gained infamy for sneaking into rooms and physically licking the eyeballs of his heavily sedated or sleeping friends. The internet, it seems, has a dark, thriving subculture dedicated to somnophilia, an intense, predatory attraction to the unconscious. Some users theorized the TikTok account was an elaborate alternate reality game, a fictional horror story playing out in real time. Others feared it was the digital trophy room of an active, escalating serial killer. The captions on the videos only fueled the panic, with phrases like "need to kill" typed across the screen. However, the truth, uncovered by digital sleuths, was arguably sadder, though no less disturbing. A Reddit user named Horseballs1998 analyzed the background details of the videos, the architecture outside the windows, the specific street signs. He cross-referenced the data and pinpointed the exact location. The videos were being filmed from inside a specific apartment complex on the quiet outskirts of Tampa, Finland, a complex specifically zoned for senior citizens aged 63 and older. The horrifying consensus was that the account holder was likely an elderly man suffering from severe dementia or Alzheimer's, wandering the halls and filming his female relatives or caretakers in a state of confused, voyeuristic delusion. But while the Finnish account may have been born of cognitive decline, another account discovered shortly after was driven by pure, calculated malice. In October, a Reddit user flagged a deeply sinister YouTube channel operated by a man named Ramad Yunus Alfian. The channel was a digital stalking diary. The videos were all shot from a first-person perspective in the dead of night. The footage showed Ramad creeping through the dark, filming a specific couple as they slept in their bed. The woman's face was often obscured, but the sheer terror of the videos lay in the intimacy of the intrusion. In one agonizing clip, Ramad films directly through the keyhole of a bedroom door. Inside, the woman is tossing and turning. You can see her body reacting to an unseen threat. She senses him. She wakes up multiple times, staring into the dark, entirely unaware that a camera lens is millimeters away from her face, on the other side of the wood. Ramad knew exactly what he was doing. The title of the video translated from Indonesian to English simply read, "Pervert." Even more chilling, Ramad had uploaded multiple videos of this exact same household, filmed on entirely different nights. He was repeatedly breaking in, or repeatedly gaining access, to stalk this specific couple. The Reddit community, fueled by righteous anger, launched a digital manhunt, analyzing the background of his other uploads, including shots of his work van. A user named PackOS I tracked Ramad down. "I think he lives in Medan, North Sumatra," the user wrote, "and he works as a locksmith." A locksmith, a man whose literal profession is defeating the very mechanisms designed to keep us safe while we sleep. The user found the address of the locksmith business and the phone number of Ramad's boss. They submitted the entire dossier to the Indonesian Cybercrime Police Department. But the grim reality is that in many parts of the world, non-consensual voyeurism is treated as a minor offense, if it is investigated at all. Ramad's brazenness, leaving his actual phone number in the video descriptions, suggested he knew he was untouchable. The internet has provided a dark sanctuary for these predators. Before, a voyeur had to hide in the shadows, isolated by their own deviance. Now, they can upload their crimes to a global audience, finding validation and community among thousands of anonymous viewers who share their sickness. They are out there, armed with high-definition cameras and a terrifying lack of empathy. Check your logs, and draw your blinds tight. Nostalgia is usually a warm, comforting blanket. We look back at the video games of our childhood with a sense of innocent joy. But sometimes, a memory resurfaces that doesn't bring a smile. It brings a cold sweat. In recent years, a bizarre phenomenon swept through gaming forums. Thousands of users began discussing a shared, highly specific memory of an arcade game from the late 1990s. They couldn't remember the exact name, but they all remembered the feeling. They described an arcade racing cabinet that felt completely, fundamentally wrong. It was a racing simulator, but crossed with the oppressive, psychological dread of Silent Hill. The game was called Drill Drive. If you haven't heard of it, there is a reason. Developed by Konami and released to arcades in 1998, Drill Drive was an ambitious title that never received a home console port. Outside of Japan, it was incredibly rare. According to massive online archives like the Konami Wiki, every single physical Thrill Doctor cabinet was believed to have been destroyed or lost to time. It was the holy grail of lost physical media. The premise of the game was deceptively simple. You raced high-performance cars through busy, civilian-populated city streets in Europe, Japan, and the United States. You dodged oncoming traffic, swerved around pedestrians, and tried to cross the finish line with the least amount of vehicular damage. It sounded like Crazy Taxi or Cruise in USA. But Thrill Doctor harbored a dark, punishing secret. The game had two settings, mild and hard. Almost every arcade operator left the cabinets set to hard by default. If a player miscalculated a turn and crashed their car on the hard setting, the game did not give them a fun, bouncy animation. The screen did not flash dry again. Instead, the moment of impact was visceral. A blood-curdling, digitized human scream ripped through the arcade speakers. For a split second, the camera snapped to the interior of the car, showing the driver's face twisted in absolute agony. Then came the slow-motion replay. The player would watch, horrified, as their digital avatar was either violently ejected through the shattered windshield, ragdolling across the asphalt, or slumped, deadened motionless, over the steering wheel as the car crumpled around them. The blare of ambulance sirens would deafen the player. The screen would fade to black, and massive, blood-red text would stamp across the monitor, "Fatal accident." But the true psychological horror of Thrill Doctor lay in what happened next. The game allowed you to continue the race after a crash, but with every fatal accident, the world of the game changed. The atmosphere began to rot. After the first crash, the vibrant blue skies of the city turned overcast. The colors of the buildings desaturated, washing out into sickly grays and browns. The upbeat, adrenaline-pumping racing music faded away, replaced by a low, droning, ambient horror soundtrack. If you crashed again, the sky turned pitch black. Torrential rain would lash the windshield. Lightning would crack across the sky, illuminating the bleak, empty streets. The game actively punished you for failing, devolving from a bright arcade racer into a suffocating, terrifying, nightmarifying nightmare. Kids who dropped their quarters into the machine expecting a fun joyride walked away feeling like they had just survived a traumatic car crash. It was less a game and more an interactive, psychological road safety PSA. Because the game was completely inaccessible, many modern gamers began to suspect Thrill Drive was an elaborate hoax. The internet is flooded with unfiction projects, creators building fake, creepy video games to tell horror stories. The low poly, so narrow graphics of the 90 seconds are famously uncanny and easy to replicate. People wondered if the entire memory of Thrill Drive was a collective hallucination, a Mandela effect manufactured by creepypasta writers. The mystery was finally, definitively solved just months ago. A user named Dill Hedgehog posted a massive update on the R-Creepy Gaming subreddit. They hadn't just found proof that the game existed, they had found the machine. So this is a bit of a historical curiosity, the user wrote. I discovered it last week in the deserted kids club at an off-season golf resort in Australia. Buried deep in the Blue Mountains of New South Wales, sitting in a dusty, forgotten corner of the Fairmount Resort, was a fully operational Thrill Doctor cabinet. The user confirmed every terrifying detail of the urban legend. If you crashed hard, your car is obliterated in ways that leave little to the imagination, they wrote. The screen goes black, and bold red letters spell out lethal accident. It's somehow much more stressful despite its lack of blood. It takes every injury really seriously. They confirmed the Silent Hill vibe, noting how the weather deteriorated into a grey, lightning flashed murk with every death. Playing the game in a deserted, off-season resort, surrounded by the notoriously thick, eerie mists of the Blue Mountains, elevated the dread to a masterclass in atmospheric horror. Thrill Doctor was real. The trauma of thousands of 90 seconds arcade kids was validated. It was a rare, beautiful victory for lost media archivists. Somewhere in the misty mountains of Australia, a forgotten machine is still waiting to punish anyone brave enough to take the wheel. And finally, we turn to a face you have almost certainly seen. A face that has likely haunted your group chats, your Twitter feeds, and your late-night scrolling sessions. Her name is Dani. If you use GIFi, the engine that powers the GIF search on WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook, you know exactly who I am talking about. Over the last few months, an incredibly unsettling, pale woman with wide, unblinking eyes and a deeply unnatural smile has infested the internet. The internet collectively dubbed her Uncanny Dani. A search on GIFi reveals a staggering statistic. Dani's GIFs have accumulated over 1.8 billion views. That is not a niche meme. That is global saturation. But for months, no one knew where she came from. The GIFs had no watermark, no creator tags, no lore. She simply appeared, staring out from the digital void, offering unsettling greetings from what looked like the fluorescent-lit purgatory of the backrooms. The rapid, unexplained viral explosion of Uncanny Dani ignited massive conspiracy theories. Some cynics believed she was a guerrilla marketing campaign for a horror movie. Internet sleuths found a British paranormal broadcaster named Danny Robbins, host of a show called Uncanny, and tried to connect the dots, but the connection was flimsy at best. Others gave Dani the full creepypasta treatment. They claimed the gifts were actual optic hazards. They warned that if you locked eyes with Danny on your screen, she would physically manifest at the foot of your bed that night. If that were true, 20% of the global population was already doomed. The truth, as it often is, was a testament to the power of pure, unfiltered digital art. The mystery unraveled when an obscure Instagram post by a special effects makeup artist named MasqueRadeFX was unearthed. The post read, "Somehow, the Uncanny Danny section of GIFI has won 5 billion views. I guess the uncertainty and the purgatory of the stale, unsettling backrooms is feeling oddly relevant." The post tagged the brilliant minds behind the nightmare. Uncanny Danny was not a demon. She was a human actor and creative performer named Laura Drummer ICK. The entire project was actually commissioned by GIFI themselves. They hired a California-based artist and director named Parker S. Jackson to create a series of custom, highly shareable reactions. Jackson is a master of the macabre. He previously worked as a concept artist for Jordan Peele's terrifying film Nope, and serves as the creative director at GIFI Studios. Jackson knew exactly how to manipulate the algorithm. He tagged the Uncanny Danny gifs with massive, generic search terms like "I miss you," "hello," and "go to sleep." Because the GIFI engine prioritizes engagement, and because users couldn't help but click on the bizarre, terrifying face staring back at them, Danny skyrocketed to the top of billions of mundane search queries. She is a manufactured viral entity, born from a brilliant understanding of the uncanny valley and internet culture. So rest easy tonight. Uncanny Danny isn't going to crawl out of your phone. She's just a masterful piece of art, a modern ghost story created to make us all feel a little less alone in the digital dark. Until next time, keep your eyes open. You never know what's waiting on the other side of the screen. There is a shadow realm that exists just beneath the glowing surface of our screens. A place where the rules of reality warp, where identities dissolve into lines of code, and where the darkest impulses of the human psyche are given free rein to hunt. Welcome back. Today, we are going deep into the digital abyss. We are going to explore a collection of modern, internet-born mysteries that blur the line between urban legend and terrifying reality. These are stories of phantoms, of digital cults, and of curses written in HTML. Turn down the lights. Take a breath. Let us begin. Our first descent takes us into a rabbit hole that feels less like a missing persons case and more like a psychological horror film. The initial breadcrumbs of this nightmare were first swept into the light by a Reddit sleuth navigating the Unsolved Mysteries forum. The date on the file is July 14th, 2017. The location is Denison, Iowa, a quiet, unassuming Midwestern town where the cornfields stretch out like a vast green ocean. It was here that an 18-year-old named Jesse Giovanni Nomaji P.U.L. supposedly vanished into thin air. When a teenager disappears, you usually expect a media frenzy. You expect frantic press conferences, search dogs scouring the woods, and tearful pleas broadcast across the evening news. But for Jesse, there was nothing. Just a deafening, chilling silence. There were no major headlines, no investigative deep dives. Just the skeletal remains of a case, file-gathering digital dust on the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, commonly known as NEMUS. According to the official database, Jesse had black hair, brown eyes, stood 5'5", and weighed around 130 pounds. But when you look closer at the official documentation, the cold facts begin to twist into something deeply sinister. The first red flag is the classification of his disappearance. Jesse's case is officially labeled as an involuntary disappearance. In the sterile language of law enforcement, missing persons are usually thrown into the broad category of endangered missing. But the word involuntary, that specific term, is almost exclusively reserved for cases where someone has been violently abducted against their will, a scenario where investigators heavily suspect foul play, blood, and tragedy. Why was an 18-year-old from a sleepy Iowa town given this rare, ominous designation? Did the authorities find something in his bedroom? A struggle, a digital footprint that they deemed too sensitive for the public? Then you stumble upon the aliases. An 18-year-old kid might have a fake kid to buy beer, but Jesse had an entire Rolodex of phantom identities. Scraping through various public databases, investigators found him tethered to names like Juan Carlos Syme, Namanjid Errol Jamal Brown, Ronaldo Aldia Rio Colon, and Adiexi Nima Yabo. But the most disturbing anomaly, the one that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, is his official missing person photograph. If you look at this picture, your brain immediately rejects the information it is being fed. The man staring back through the lens is not an 18-year-old boy. The eyes carry a heavy, aged exhaustion. The facial structure is mature, weathered. To any rational observer, this is a man well into his mid-30s, utilizing heavy, bizarre filters and makeup in a desperate, deeply unsettling attempt to look like a teenager. It is an incredibly disturbing image, and yet, it was the only photograph provided to law enforcement, the only face attached to his name. To make matters even more bizarre, Jesse S.'s profile on the Iowa Missing Persons database was suddenly and inexplicably scrubbed from the internet entirely, without a single word of explanation. Who was Jesse? Was he ever really an 18-year-old boy? Or was he a ghost wearing a stolen skin? The narrative fractures completely when you realize that despite being officially missing, abducted, and presumed in mortal danger, Jesse S.'s social media accounts were actively lighting up long after he supposedly vanished. Digital sleuths began connecting the dots. They uncovered a LinkedIn page and a Russian VK profile bearing his name. The pages were littered with photographs of the same, older man from the missing poster, posing in deeply inappropriate, suggestive ways. But it was 3 specific accounts that cracked this mystery wide open, revealing a putrid, horrifying truth. The first was a Twitter account conjured into existence in 2018, a full year after Jesse had evaporated from Iowa. The biography on this account, written in Spanish, translates to, "I am a model boy, dancer, and singer. I am 13 years old." Let that sink in. An adult man, officially listed as a missing 18-year-old, is actively operating a Twitter account claiming to be a prepubescent child. The posts that followed were a descent into madness. One tweet featured a photograph of a young, unidentified boy, clearly not Jesse, accompanied by the caption, "My new picture, I'm handsome." Video clips showed the adult man, the one from the missing poster, dancing in a room wearing minimal clothing, role-playing as a child. This was no longer a missing persons case. This was a predator hiding in plain sight. Alongside the Twitter account, investigators unearthed 2 active YouTube channels tethered to Jesse S.'s web of aliases. On the surface, they looked like low-quality, bizarre music videos, but a closer inspection revealed a nightmare. The videos were chaotic slideshows, images of the adult man wearing shorts and a bright yellow Minions t-shirt, furiously pretending to be a little boy, were spliced together with photographs of completely unidentified, real young boys. One video, chillingly titled "The Little Guy from Central America, the Reggaeton Boy," laid the predator's pathology bare. It was the work of a deeply delusional fantasist, a monster utilizing stolen photographs of children to construct a sickening illusion. But the darker, more horrifying reality accepted by internet sleuths is that these videos were not just fantasies. They were dog whistles. They were coded calling cards, digital advertisements broadcast into the dark web to signal to other predators that this channel owner possessed illicit, highly illegal material to trade. If there was any lingering doubt, the man in these videos was the same individual from the Iowa missing poster. The visual evidence destroyed it. It is the exact same man, the exact same facial structure, wearing the exact same necklace, standing in the exact same room. The final, damning piece of the puzzle clicked into place thousands of miles south of Iowa. In 2018, the same year the disturbing Twitter account was created, police in San Antonio, Texas, arrested a 38-year-old man named Pedro Namoya Boa. The charge: uploading horrific, exploitative child material to Instagram. Look at Pedro's mugshot, the shadows beneath the cheekbones, the arch of the eyebrows, the shape of the jaw. It is a perfect, undeniable match. Pedro is Jesse. Jesse is Pedro. The rabbit hole goes deeper. Remember that long list of aliases. One of them was Daryl Jamal Brown. A Reddit investigator discovered that Daryl Jamal Brown was not a fabricated name. He was a real, flesh and blood 24-year-old man who tragically died in Texas in 2016. The predator had literally stolen the identity of a corpse to mask his movements. It becomes terrifyingly clear that this man was never abducted in Iowa. He was a prolific predator using the missing persons database as a smokescreen. Even after his 2018 arrest in Texas, he continued to operate his sickening network of fake profiles. Comments left on cold case websites indicated that he had migrated to SoundCloud, operating under names like Edixon Giovanni and Junior Giovanni Paul. Their bios still chillingly claiming, "I'm a child. My parents don't support me, and I sing and dance." The digital trail abruptly goes cold in 2021. Did he flee across the border to El Salvador to escape the crushing weight of the United States justice system? Was he quietly apprehended and thrown into a concrete cell, lost to the bureaucratic maze of the prison system? Or, in a darker twist of vigilante justice, did he cross paths with the family of one of his victims? We do not know. To this very day, Jesse Giovanni Namoji Pul is still officially listed as an involuntary missing 18-year-old on government databases. The ghost remains in the machine, a terrifying reminder that sometimes the face on a missing poster isn't the victim. Sometimes it's the monster. We move now from the horrific realities of predators hiding behind stolen faces to a different kind of psychological manipulation. A manipulation that preyed not on the physical body, but on the profound, aching loneliness of the internet age. Imagine it is January 2017. You are wandering through the sprawling, anonymous message boards of 4chan's or 9kboard, or scrolling through the malapedative dreaming subreddits. These are digital sanctuaries for the socially isolated, for people who feel entirely disconnected from the physical world, individuals who spend hours trapped in intricate, comforting daydreams just to survive the crushing weight of reality. Into this vulnerable ecosystem stepped a user named Suki. Suki claimed to be a 16-year-old boy from the Netherlands, but Suki was not just another lonely teenager. Suki was a prophet. Through a series of long, intricately written posts, Suki unveiled a breathtakingly complex cosmology. He claimed that the universe as we perceive it is a lie. Reality is simply a series of coded, digital dimensions existing within a massive, incomprehensible omniverse known as system space. Humanity, Suki explained, was currently trapped inside a specific system called life. And the life system was failing. It was scheduled to go offline. Suki presented himself as the sole human representative of a cosmic conglomerate. His mission was to warn the denizens of the internet that a digital apocalypse was approaching, and to offer them an escape hatch. He called this the Suki Project. To lend absolute credibility to his apocalyptic visions, the teenage prophet launched a website, System Space. Link. If you view the archived remnants of this site today, you have to admit, it was a masterpiece of digital design. It was impeccably coded, sleek, and dripping with an atmosphere of existential dread. Visually, Suki borrowed heavily from the aesthetic of Serial Experiments Lane, a cult classic psychological anime from the late 90s that explores the erasure of the boundary between the physical world and the virtual realm called the virtual realm. Wired. When you landed on Suki's homepage, the first thing your eyes were drawn to was the timer. A massive, ominous, glowing countdown clock, ticking away the seconds, minutes, and days until July 1st, 2017. Beneath the ticking clock, Suki's manifesto laid out the stakes with terrifying, clinical detachment. You are currently in one of many systems, the text read into the bedroom. Your system is called life. This construct runs on a type of energy called aurora. Because there is only a limited amount of aurora, we must manage how the systems use it. Unfortunately, the life system seems unable to improve. As a result, life will be unlinked and purged. Suki explained that when the purge happened, the physical world would appear to continue as normal, but it would be a hollow shell. New human bodies would be born without souls, and anyone who died without taking the proper precautions would experience soul shatter, the absolute, permanent erasure of their consciousness. But there was a way out. Suki urged his readers to register for migration. To save themselves, users had to submit a specific, handwritten code alongside a personal drawing, Suki claimed he would personally use these submissions to tether their souls to a brand new utopian dimension called LFE. If you were registered upon your physical death in the life system, your consciousness would seamlessly awaken in a new, flawless body within the LFE system. A digital heaven. A place where, in Suki's own manipulative words, everyone matters. To a well-adjusted adult, this sounds like a fascinating, elaborate alternate reality game, a work of interactive, collaborative internet fiction. But to the deeply depressed, the bullied, the chronically online youths who felt utterly invisible in their daily lives, Suki was offering them a golden ticket to paradise. Within months, thousands of people had signed up. They proudly called themselves migrants. They congregated in Discord servers, writing massive wikis to flesh out the lore of system space. They found community. They found purpose. The dark irony, of course, was their use of the anime character Lane as their mascot. The original anime was a profound warning against abandoning the physical world for digital escapism. Yet here they were, using her face to champion exactly that. As the Suki project exploded in popularity, drawing the gaze of massive YouTube commentators, the tone of the community began to curdle. Skeptics accused Suki of running a sophisticated scam, pointing out that the teenage prophet was more than happy to accept Bitcoin donations to allegedly buy more server storage in the LFE system, pocketing thousands of real-world dollars in the process. But a far more terrifying theory began to take root in the darker corners of the web. Was system space a digital death cult? The logic of the law was inherently dangerous. If the LFE system was a flawless utopia waiting for you after death, and the current life system was a doomed, decaying prison, why wait? Why endure decades of mundane suffering, depression, and physical illness? Suki had even warned his followers that if they lived long enough to develop dementia or severe brain trauma in the physical world, their memories might be too corrupted to successfully transfer to the LFE system. The forums grew incredibly dark. Migrants began casually discussing their plans to self-disconnect after the July 1st unlinked date. Suki's defenders were quick to point out a disclaimer on his website. He explicitly urged his followers to live out their natural, physical lives to gather knowledge for the next world. But Suki spoke out of both sides of his mouth. In private messages and buried from posts, his rhetoric was chillingly passive regarding suicide. "I don't want to force you to keep going through life," he wrote to his followers. "And if you really wish to die, we won't stop you. If you choose to, let me know beforehand so I can open the ports early." He even instructed anyone planning an early exit to wipe their computer hard drives, to erase any digital trace linking their death to the Suki project. July 1st, 2017, finally arrived. The clock, Idzaru, the life system was unlinked. And nothing happened. The sun rose. The internet kept humming. For the vast majority of the migrants, it seemed the spell had broken. They realized they were simply LARPing, playing a dark game of pretend. The community began to splinter. But the tragedy of system space was just beginning. On July 13th, less than 2 weeks after the unlinked date, a 17-year-old boy named Jake Fair vanished from his home in West Kelowna, located in the sweeping, isolated wilderness of British Columbia, Canada. Jake was entirely disconnected from the physical world. He had no mobile phone. He possessed no traditional social media accounts. When local investigators entered his silent bedroom looking for clues, they found his computer. The hard drive had been meticulously, completely erased. Resting on his bedroom table was a single, handwritten note. It contained only 3 letters. Then, a month of agonizing searching followed. On August 12th, the authorities found Jake's body deep in the heavily wooded area near McDougall Creek. Foul play was officially ruled out. Jake had taken his own life. It was soon confirmed by his devastated family that Jake had been an active, devoted migrant of the Suki project. His grieving mother later shared a heart-wrenching video, directly tying the concept of system space to her son's tragic decision. Did the Suki project pull the trigger? No. Jake was undoubtedly fighting profound, invisible demons long before he found Suki's website. But did a digital prophet, promising a painless transfer to a cyberpunk utopia, provide the final, fatal push? Did the instruction to erase your hard drive and leave early romanticize the end for a vulnerable teenager? When the blood finally hit the floor, Suki's true colors were revealed. He was not a savior. He was a coward. One prominent YouTuber like Scare Theater investigated the project and connected it to Jake's death. Suki unleashed his remaining zealots. They harassed, said, and threatened the creators. In a display of sickening cruelty, Suki even tracked down and contacted Jake Fair's grieving sister, attempting to emotionally manipulate the shattered family into forcing the investigative videos offline. Eventually, the entire foundation of system space crumbled. Former disciples realized the deep, complex lore Suki had supposedly channeled from the cosmos was actually just heavily plagiarized from a Japanese visual novel called Rewrite. Suki was unmasked as an arrogant teenager running a manipulative, dangerous psychological experiment. The Discord server imploded. The website was torn down. If you navigate to the URL today, you won't find the glowing timer or the promises of a digital heaven. You will only find a cryptic, silent video looping in the dark. A ghost of a project that promised utopia, but only delivered grief. For our final journey, we are going to step back in time. Before Discord, before sophisticated ARGs, back to the raw, untamed wilderness of the early 2000s internet. There are certain images that burrow into your subconscious. Images that you view late at night, illuminated only by the harsh, static glow of a heavy CRT monitor that refuse to leave you when you finally close your eyes. In the mid-2000s, an urban legend began to spread like a digital virus across the sprawling, anonymous Japanese message boards of Tokyo. It was a whispered rumor of a surreal, deeply cursed website. The site was allegedly an optic hazard, a place containing imagery so inherently wrong, so psychologically damaging, that simply laying eyes on it would ruin your life. It was the digital equivalent of the cursed videotape from The Ring. Users would share the URL via deceptive chain letters, baiting unsuspecting victims with the promise of a funny joke or a feel-good story, only to drop them into a nightmare. The legend stated that the website consisted of a blindingly white screen covered in ominous, threatening text, but the true danger lay hidden within its pages. Supposedly, the site harbored an image of a specific torii gate, the traditional, vermilion wooden gates found at the entrances of Shinto shrines. The curse was brutally simple. If you saw the image of the torii gate on your screen, a countdown began. If you did not physically locate that exact, real-world torii gate and visit it in person, a terrible, agonizing misfortune would befall you. Death was guaranteed. For years, the legend of the site haunted internet archivists, but the URL seemed lost to time, supposedly changing constantly as its creator, who was rumored to have died by their own curse, sought to keep it hidden from prying eyes. But the internet never truly forgets. Diving into the dusty archives of a platform called Rocket BBS, internet sleuths struck gold. They found a forum thread dated August 2nd, 2005. The users were initially discussing the terrifying PlayStation 2 horror game Siren, but the conversation had taken a sudden, panic detour. A user named Asuka created a post titled, "I have a headache. This site makes no sense," Asuka wrote. "I don't know what the intention was, but it makes me feel uneasy when I look at it. It might be a virus. Could someone please tell me what kind of site this is?" And then, Asuka dropped the legendary URL, "Nice day, fine day." org. The responses from the 2005 forum users were immediate and terrified. "It's so disgusting, I feel like I'm going crazy," one user replied. "If you enter, you may regret it for the rest of your life." Another chimed in with the lore. The administrator of that site was bullied in the past, so he started cursing people. By the way, the people whose names are written in red on the Mabel page have already passed away. My name was on that list. I feel really bad. It's too much, straight. Armed with the URL, modern archivists fed it into the Wayback Machine. They stepped back in time and walked through the front door of the cursed website. Loading the archived page of Nice Day, Fine Day is like stepping into a virtual haunted house built by a deeply disturbed mind. You are immediately greeted by a blinding white background. Dominating the center of your screen is a low-resolution, grainy photograph of a bloated, pale human face submerged just beneath the surface of dark, murky water. Ominous. Scrolling text crawls across the screen. Behind you. You saw it, right? A series of hyperlinks are scattered across the page. They are not labeled home or about us. They are listed simply as die, kill, cursed, cry, shout, struggle, hunt, go insane, rise. If you drag your mouse cursor over the seemingly empty white space between the submerged face and the links, hidden text is suddenly highlighted. It is a relentless, suffocating litany of atrocities. Words pour down the screen. Madness, murder, weapon, stabbing, bludgeoning, burning, drowning, roadkill, bleed, seppuku, omen, scouring, mania. Clicking through the site feels like navigating a digital fever dream. One page flashes violet, the word die repeating infinitely into the margins. Another link leads to a heavily warped, distorted photograph of a screaming face. Clicking that face drops you into a labyrinth of cryptic, unreadable text. Then, you find the fabled Mabel link. Clicking it brings up the administrator's personal death note. It is a stark, terrifying list of Japanese names written in katakana, sama, glowing in pure white, but most of the names are violently slashed through with thick, reed lines, indicating the curse has taken hold and the victim has already been dragged to the grave. But where was the optic hazard? Where was the Torii gate? The archivist discovered the final, brilliant Easter egg hiding on the landing page. If you stare at the bloated head submerged in the water, you notice something horrifying. Incrementally, almost imperceptibly, the dead man's head is slowly rising from the bottom of the river, inching closer and closer to the surface of your screen. If you panic and click the rising head, you don't escape. You are pulled under. The screen shifts, and there they are, the Torii gates, looming in the digital mist. Beneath the image of the gates, the final curse is etched into the screen. I'm called Curse. 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 Yimto. Yimto indeed. According to the law, the trap was sprung. The viewer now had to scour the entire nation of Japan, a country boasting hundreds of thousands of Shinto shrines, to find this exact gate. If they failed, their name was going to read on the Mabel page. It is a terrifying, brilliant piece of interactive horror. But thankfully, the sleuths did not have to book a flight to Tokyo to save their souls. They demystified the legend. The terrifying Torii gates. They are located at the Hanezi Ono Jinja Shrine, sitting right in the middle of the bustling, neon-soaked tourist district of Shinwocha. The site's creator had simply right-clicked an image from a travel blog, posterized it in Photoshop to make it look gritty, and slapped a curse on it. The horrifying, bloated face in the river. It was a stock image lifted directly from the cover of a cheap paranormal paperback called I.C.O. Gibbons' Horror Document Psychic Photo Collection, and the shape of the head itself. Upon closer inspection of the original photo, it's not a human at all. It's just a blurry duck swimming in front of a wet rock. This spell was broken. In 2023, the creator of Nice Day Fine Day, who was very much alive and decidedly not killed by his own curse, gave an interview. He admitted the entire site was just a massive, elaborate prank. He was a teenager experimenting with web design. He explained the terrifying Mabel death list. He had coded a simple script designed to read the visitor's computer username and display it on the page in red font, creating the personalized illusion that the viewer was already dead. It was a fun gimmick, but because early 2000s browsers were clunky, the script almost never worked. He reminisced about features that the Wayback Machine failed to archive. The site used to blast ominous MIDI music. The white background originally featured a ghostly Jesus statue. And if you stared at the cursed Torii gates for too long, the creator had programmed a pixelated rice bowl, an onigiri, to fly across the screen and hit you in the face. As for the URL constantly changing, the creator admitted he first built the site on a free hosting service called Magic Island. The moderators found it, deemed it too weird, and deleted it. So he simply rented a new server, and Nice Day became Nice Day Fine Day. Today, the curse is dead, and The site is nothing more than a ghost trapped in the amber of the Wayback Machine. What was originally built by a bored teenager to inflict digital terror has evolved into something deeply comforting. It is a time capsule, a nostalgic relic of a simpler, weirder internet, where the monsters hiding in your computer monitor were just lines of HTML and a picture of a duck. So rest easy tonight. You don't need to book a flight to Japan. You don't need to visit a shrine to lift a curse. The real horrors of the internet are rarely written in red text on a white screen. They are the people who use the digital veil to hide their true faces. Thank you for listening. Keep your screens dim and watch where you click.